Hi students. Today we're going to talk about the comparison contrast essay. So I am going to be going over the chapter in Steps to Writing Well on the comparison contrast essay, which is in chapter 11. So it would probably help to follow along. And on page 237, if you have a previous edition, the page number, could vary, but you should still be able to follow along in that chapter. So the purpose of a comparison contrast essay is to compare and contrast two different things, for lack of a better word. I think if you've taken classes from me before or seen previous video, I don't like the word things, but another word is escaping me right now. So you're comparing two subjects. There you go. Comparing two subjects for some purpose. And that's what is really important to keep in mind is your purpose for that comparison and contrast will be in your thesis. That's your idea. So it's not just a report. This is still an essay, and you've got to have that idea, this reason for comparing, the two points or the two subjects. So, for example, you might, compare two different places to go on vacation. And you wouldn't just list this place has this and this place has that, and then that's the end of the story. That would be a report on those two places. But it would not be really an essay because you would not have any big idea. So you still have to have your big idea, which is your thesis. That is your reason for comparing them or your idea about them. So, for example, if you were comparing going to Lake Tahoe for a vacation, or you were comparing going to New York City for a vacation, you would have some big idea about what you decided of where is the best vacation for you. And so you have that idea within your thesis, and that governs everything. Right? So you're not just going to leave it, I'm comparing and contrasting this and this. Again, you've got to have some idea as to why, or again, your reason, your thought on it. You are still making that point. So just keep that in mind as we go. So in the beginning of the chapter, the author talks about how we're always comparing things, right? We're always comparing experiences, or it could be restaurants, or it could be, whatever, right? So we're frequently doing this, and a comparison contrast is part of that comparison that we would normally do, except that it still has to have that essay structure, and like I was saying, it has to have that thesis, right? All right, so then when she talks at the end of page 237 about developing your essay, she brings up that there are two major ways to do a comparison contrast essay. One is called a block style, and one is called a point by point style. So we're going to go through those two types of styles. So page 239 has a really nice explanation and layout of these two styles. Pattern 1, as she says in the book, is called point by point. So it says here, I'm just going to read from it because she says it really well here. It says, this method of organization calls for body paragraphs that compare and contrast the two subjects, first on point 1, then on point 2, then on point 3, and so on. So meaning that you have the same, let's use that idea I said earlier about you're deciding whether to go on vacation to Lake Tahoe or New York City. You would have the same points that you are comparing them on. You still have to compare and contrast them on the same points, even if you're doing block style, but it's a different formatting. So, because you need everything to be equal. But keeping that point by point idea, let's say that your 3 points that you want to compare these two vacation places for you are price, price, and what's another reason to go on a place to choose for a vacation? Might be sights to see, sightseeing, and family. Maybe you want to visit some family in both of those places and you're trying to figure out that component. All right, so that would mean, I'm going to put this, vacation, comparison, contrast, right? So let's say that you wanted to compare these 3 points. Then what you would do is you would compare price for both. Then you would compare sightseeing for both. Then you would compare the family component for both. All right? So meaning you go point by point, but for both. Okay? So you would structure it in that way. Whereas block style, you cover the same points, but you do all, you would do all of Lake Tahoe, and then you would do all of New York City on those same points. You're really covering the same issues and topic and the same points, except that it's just how you format it. And there's really no right or wrong in whether you want to choose point by point or you want to choose block style. It's just how you personally think it's going to be more effective, or how it just feels better to you as you're writing it, honestly. Whatever is more comfortable for you, or how it's working out that you want to do it. It's really just a choice. There's no right or wrong in that way. All right, but let's go over a little bit more. So I'm going to give the example, just go over the example she gives in the book, where she says the thesis is Mom's Hamburger Haven is a better family restaurant than McPhony's because of its superior food, service, and atmosphere. That's an excellent thesis because it has their idea in it, and it indicates that they're going to be comparing and contrasting, and what they're going to be comparing and contrasting. Your thesis should also do that. It should have your idea. So yes, you're going to tell them how it turns out. Again, sometimes this can happen with the thesis statement that we feel like we don't want to say it till the last paragraph because we don't want to tell them how it all turned out. And it feels like we're giving it away, but it doesn't feel like that to the reader. To the reader, it just feels clear that they understand where this is going. So you actually don't want to leave it as a big surprise in the end. Creative writing, you can do that, but not in essay writing. So I'm going to just mention that again, and you have your book, so you can follow along. So I'm not going to write it on here, but it says thesis again. Mom's Hamburger Haven is a better family restaurant than McPhony's because of its superior food, service, and atmosphere. So what is the topic? The topic is the comparison. Let's break it down because we know with our thesis we need a topic plus an idea, right? So again, as always, thesis equals topic plus idea about topic. That is still the same. Thesis equals topic plus idea about topic, right? What is the topic? Not in this one, but in the book. The topic in the book was this comparison, contrast between Mom's Hamburger Haven and McPhony's. Okay, so that is the topic. The reader knows we will be comparing Mom's Hamburger Haven and McPhony's. That's the topic. What is this writer's idea about topic is that they liked, oh, I'm tilting here, my board's tilting, sorry. They liked Mom's Hamburger Haven better. All right, so the idea is they liked it better for 3 points that all go together. So, and I'm gonna make an arrow here. You can follow my arrow. Here's the idea. All right, that Mom's Hamburger Haven, as they said, it's superior. Okay, so that is this they liked better. You do need to say how it's turning out. You do need to give your clear idea about this. That's what makes it an essay. That's what pulls all this together at the center. All right, so it's superior because, and they give their 3 points, which is also called an essay map, right? So again, their 3 points are that the superior food, service, and atmosphere. Okay, so food, service, and atmosphere. So we also know that we have to compare and contrast both restaurants by these same points, no matter how we're doing it. No matter if we're doing it point by point or block style, you have to compare the same criteria. So, for example, you can't talk about the food at Mom's Hamburger Haven but not talk about the food at McPhony's. That would be unclear. It would, so if we said, oh, I'm talking all about the food at Mom's Hamburger Haven, and then for McPhony's, we're talking about the cleanliness. Well, but cleanliness wasn't one of our points, so we can't do that. If you're talking about cleanliness, it has to be cleanliness on topic 1 and cleanliness on topic 2, right? If you're talking about food, it's got to be food for topic 1 and food for topic 2. They have to be the same, right? So they can't be different. It'll be just like a big salad, right? So we don't need a big salad or everything's mixed together. It needs to be 3 clear points, no matter if you're doing point by point or block. All right. So this is a great example of a thesis. So I would totally check that out on your own as well on page 239. All right. So again, this is a good example as well of doing a point-by-point plan. She gives a really nice outline. I think that's really clear on that. So I am going to erase this just so we can, see and everything. So here we go. And so again, now we'll break it down point by point for that particular thesis. So hang on while I just erase my little small tiny whiteboard here, right? Such a cute whiteboard, but I wish it were, a little bit bigger one. All right, so again, we know our thesis. I'm going to repeat it again just so we're like, yes, I have memorized this thesis and I could recite it in my sleep. No, well, I don't need you to do that, but I do need you just to kind of keep the focus so we remember what it is and what our points are going to be. So again, our thesis, Mom's Hamburger Haven is a better family restaurant than McPhony's because of its superior food, service, atmosphere. All right. So as she says in point 1 is all about the food. So I am going to jot that down just to kind of center us in that. Point 1 is all about the food. All right. So that means that you would compare both topics about the food. So A, Mom's and McPhony's. All right. So both. You talk about point 1, you talk about the food at Mom's and the food at McPhony's. Okay, so you've got to, again, compare them on that same criteria. Really, really important. I know I'm saying this over, but I'm saying it over because it's really important. Our minds are very, very complex, which is a wonderful thing we have as humans. There's that word again. But what can happen with that inadvertently is that since we can hold many ideas at the same time, it's also easy for us to start with one topic and segue onto another and another, and then we've lost our essay structure, we've lost our focus, and the reader is confused, right? So we can't do that. So we know that we're complex thinkers, and we know what a wonderful thing that is to be. Is to be able to do. But we have to keep the focus. So that's why I keep saying that. All right, so point 2, as it says in the book, I'm just going by the example of the book as my board is doing a thing. It's my favorite word today, even though it's my least favorite word. Okay, thing of its own, which is service. So then point 2 is all about the service. And you're going to say, you know, A, service at Mom's. B is service at McPhony's. So each, in a point-by-point structure, each point will get its own body paragraph normally, right? So each point gets its own body paragraph. You state your idea that supports your thesis, and then you talk about, in this case, the food at both restaurants, and you talk about, in this case, the service at both restaurants. And then finally, we have point 3, which is, of course, the atmosphere, right? And of course, it would be about Mom's and McPhony's, right? So again, you can look at this in the book as well. I just wanted to kind of just keep us on that focus and just kind of make sure that you don't want to leave one out. You don't want to start talking about the service at Mom's and you get so into that that you forget. You forget to, you know, talk about McPhony's. Comparison contrast. It has to be, you have to give equal time in a sense. You don't have to give equal time in that you must support your thesis, but you have to give an equal amount of space to both. Otherwise, it doesn't feel like it's fully developed. All right, let's look at the next pattern of development, which is the block style. All right. So, I'm going to bring up one other point that she brings up in the book, which is an excellent point before we leave point by point. So it says, if you select this pattern of organization point by point, you must make a smooth transition from subject A to subject B in each discussion to avoid a choppy seesaw effect. So transition words and phrases, there they are again, right? They're coming up very important here because you don't want to get the reader lost in not knowing which restaurant you're talking about or whatever your subject is. We'll talk about topics a little bit later, but it says be consistent, present the same subject first in each discussion of a major point. So that is actually kind of a relief because you know how to structure it. If you talk about Mom's first and McPhony's second, then just stay with that. Mom's first, McPhony's second. Mom's first, McPhony's second. So that way, again, the reader has a clear sense of which, in this case, restaurant is being talked about. All right, and then it says, be consistent, present the same subject first. Yes, I said that in each discussion of major point. In the essay, just outlined, as they said here, Mom's is always coming first before McPhony's. It really doesn't matter which one you pick first on yours either, as long as you stay consistent, all right? So you just don't want to start mixing it up because, again, that could confuse the reader. All right, so pattern 2 is called the block pattern. So you want to, in this, you're going to organize it slightly differently. So it says here, this method of organization presents body paragraphs in which the writer first discusses subject A on points 1, 2, and 3, and so on, and then discusses subject B. All right, and then it says on the same points. All right, so in that case, we're going to go with, just like they did with the same example of the 2 restaurants, right? But then you're dealing with all Moms on all those points, and then you switch to dealing with all McPhony's on those points, right? So, and again, they have it laid out really nicely in the book, which is cool. So I will try to do my magic eraser here. That's not really so magic, but here we go. All right, so Here we go. And come on, little easel, you gotta hold up here. Okay. Looks a little precarious, but we're going to go with it. All right, so block style. So again, we have our thesis. I'm not going to write it down. It's right there in front of you in the book that says Mom's Hamburger Haven is a better family restaurant than McPhony's because of its superior food, service, and atmosphere. So they have the same thesis, you know, same idea, right? They're just organizing it differently, and that's what is key in remembering this, that these two styles are just an organization method, and that's why there's really no right or wrong. It's just clarity for the reader and how, what is, you know, what you feel comfortable doing for that topic for your paper. All right, so, but block would be like this. So you would have A, here's the topic, moms, right? And then you would have food. 2 is service, 3 is atmosphere, and B would be McPhony's. Food, service, and atmosphere. So instead of going point by point, in this case you would do all moms on food, service, and atmosphere, all McPhony's, food, service, and atmosphere. So there are different ways to organize this, but I would probably say, because every essay has to have 5 paragraphs, right, minimum. So you've got your intro, you've got your conclusion. If this was all 1 paragraph, then this was all 1 paragraph, that would only leave you with 4 paragraphs total, and you'd be 1 short. So normally block style, each one of these is going to get a paragraph, which would give you longer, you know, more paragraphs. But sometimes it just flows better this way. Also, maybe you have a longer length requirement. I mean, so our pages, how about our essays for this class are 3 to 5 pages, but you may very well be in a class that is requiring you to do a comparison contrast essay on some subject, and it's a 8 to 10 page paper. Well, maybe you want to do block style for that because you need that development to be, you know, lengthier, and that might work well. It really just, again, no right or wrong, it's just the situation, the topic, how you structure it, etc. All right, and don't forget, of course, your intro and conclusion. Every essay has to have that clear introduction with the thesis and a clear conclusion. All right, so I'm going to just read this a little bit more, where she has this explanation at the bottom after the block style. It says, if you use the block pattern, you should discuss the 3 points, food, service, and atmosphere, in the same order. Again, you have to do the same order. So food, food, service, service, atmosphere, atmosphere. A lot of, in a sense, essay writing is matching. You know, matching did not go away when you from years ago in preschool or whatever, right? Things have to match. Otherwise, it's just unclear for the reader. So notice the matching. We got food, we got food. We got service, we got service. We got atmosphere, we got atmosphere. Everything else to match, okay? All right, so then it says, in other words, because your statements about mom's superior food may be several, okay, I'm going to back up. I'm sorry. It says, in addition, you must include in your discussion of subject B, this is key, specific references to the point you made earlier about subject A. So it doesn't, in a block style, so it doesn't read like a report. Again, so I'm reporting on moms, I'm reporting on McPhony's, here you go, right? Even if you have a thesis, it could slide into that report problem if you don't indicate any reference to your earlier statements. So you might say something like that the food at McPhony's in comparison to mom's is not of the same quality as moms. In fact, it seems to be a very inferior quality. And maybe it's a prepackaged or whatever it is, right? But you reference the other one, even in this one. It shouldn't be just standalone, like it's like a package that just stands by itself. No, it's a comparison contrast essay, so you're comparing and contrasting, you're referencing what you said earlier, so that there's a connection. There should always be sort of this line of connection that the reader can follow. All right, so that's a really, really good point. All right, so we are going to flippity-doo-dah over to page 240. And on 240, I thought that she sort of indicated this really well, where she says, which pattern should you use, right? So, and I've said some of that. So here's what our author is saying on 240. She says, as you prepare to compose your first draft, you might ask yourself, which pattern of organization should I use? Point by point or block? Right? And indeed, this is not your simple paper or plastic. I love that. From the grocery store, it's not quite that, straightforward for everyone. It's an important question to which there is no single easy answer. It's not easy in that it's complex to you as a writer as to what you think this topic it will work better for, the length of the project, etc. But it's not complex in that, oh, woe is me, it's all too much. No, I mean, you can do this, right? So, but it's complex in that there's not just, hey, do this one or do that one. You figure out, this is where, in a sense, you get to make a creative decision as to what is going to be the best fit. That's a good way to phrase it, I think, is the best fit for you as a writer and for your individual topic and your individual process, how you want to craft this paper, right? So that's what makes it unique and complex, and you get to put you into it. And again, it doesn't mean that you have to use the same format every time you do a comparison contrast essay. You might decide to do point by point because that works better for this topic and this essay, but you might do a different comparison contrast essay in another class, another year, and you might choose block style that time. So again, it's individual to each person, but also to each situation. All right, so and then let's see, I'm going to talk about the problems to avoid on page 241. I love how our author does this, because she does bring up some things that can come up that are individual to each type of essay. So this says, the single most serious error of this type of paper is the so what thesis. So you don't want, again, this to turn into just a report, right? This is not just a news report that is totally unbiased and you just give both sides or something. That's not what this is. So it says, writers of comparison and contrast essays often wish to convince their readers that something, a restaurant, a movie, these are topic ideas, by the way, a restaurant, a movie, a product is better or worse than something else. So again, we have kind of a draft of the earlier thesis. It says, Mom's Haven is a better place to eat than McPhony's. But not all comparison or contrast essays assert the absolute superior or inferiority of their subjects. Sometimes writers simply want to point out the similarities or differences in two or more people, places, or objects, and that's fine too, as long as the writer avoids the so what thesis problem. So, in a nutshell, my takeaway from that I'm passing on to you, and you can of course read it yourself. But the thesis will be unique to you. It doesn't always have to be this one's better, this one's worse. It may be a little more complex than that, but it has to be an idea. You don't want it to just be, I am comparing two different restaurants for this project. Well, we don't know what your idea is. We don't know which one you liked, we don't know your dislike. We don't know why. So that would not be a good thesis, really. And it may be that, again, it's a little more complex than just this one was good and this one was bad. There may be something in the middle of that, but it has to be an idea, right? So let's keep going on that. It says, but not all comparison contrast essays assert the, yeah, we said that, sorry. Too often, novice writers will present thesis statements such as, my sister and I are very different. That as a thesis is too vague. So we've got good start. They had a good start that they're comparing their sister and, their sister and themselves, right? But that's too vague, that we're very different. So you might say that my sister and I have very different personalities, and then you got to have some idea about that, of how that helps you to get along really well together, because that there's a balance there. That's not a thesis, it's just an idea for a thesis, but you need to have some sort of clear idea. And again, just the fact that the two of you are different is a starting place, but it's not a clear idea for the actual thesis. So it says, or having a blended family with two stepbrothers and a stepsister has advantages and disadvantages for me. Okay, so that's a good starting place, because they know what they're comparing and contrasting, but there's no clear idea about that. So advantages and disadvantages, that sounds like a report. Here are the advantages, here are the disadvantages. We're not doing a report here, we're doing an essay. So that's a good starting place. And then think, and what's my big idea about that? What is my big idea about the fact that there are these advantages and disadvantages? What's the takeaway? That's another way to think about it. All right, so moving on from that, it says here that, so this is what she means by the so what thesis. So she says, to these thesis statements, readers can only respond, so what? I mean, like, so if you were to say, my sister and I have very different personalities. The reader might say, so what? Of course, people have different personalities. What's your point? And that sounds rather harsh, but it's not harsh with a negative intention. It's just straightforward, so that you can know, if you're starting with that you still need to develop your idea.